Welcome to Priestess Initiations, the Goddess Coven. I'm Casey Dunn, educator, priestess, and professional somatic therapist. In April 2025, I went through a priestess initiation of old and launched the Priestess Initiations podcast 6 months later. Whatever brought you here today, I invite you to drop into the spiral with me. Let's begin. Welcome back to Priestess Initiations, the Goddess Coven. I'm Casey, and today we are diving into the Queen of Pentacles archetype, which is a tarot card. And I thought a lot about what today's episode would be. We're in this Celtic arc, but this season I also left myself a lot of spaciousness. So there are spots where episodes are just unplanned to go with whatever's coming up. And so it's a little bit of a spontaneous transmission in that this episode came to me yesterday. And there's a little bit of planning because I still tied it into the astrology for you. But what I settled on is this theme around nervous system safety and abundance, especially in sacred work. And this really ties into our astrology because the sun is in Taurus. Finally, for those of us who are not fire signs, it's feeling like a finally. Taurus is opposite Scorpio. So I have a lot of energy in Scorpio, and Taurus is the opposite. It's grounding. Taurus is also where my south node is. And this week, the sun is in Taurus. But it's not just in Taurus. It's in Taurus square Pluto in Aquarius. So archetypally what that means is this grounded Taurus energy, and Taurus is the bull, but Taurus is also the Empress, the Earth Queen, the Queen of Pentacles, who we'll be talking about today. And Taurus wants to build slowly, sensuously, from the body and the earth. And we talked about Venus in Taurus, that's her home sign. Taurus holds that energy too. Now, Pluto in Aquarius wants to basically blow up the systems that made the old way of building possible. And so this square between the sun in Taurus and Pluto in Aquarius is really giving us some initiatory tension between personal security and collective revolution. And so this might be bringing up, where are you trying to sustain something that the cosmos is asking you to transform, right? Where does your desire to root, to nest, to be safe, clash with the demand to evolve? This isn't comfortable astrology. You might have felt this. It rarely is comfortable when Pluto's involved, but discomfort here is data. It's pointing directly at what needs to die so something real can be built. And Venus is actually leaving her home sign. So Venus, goddess of beauty, self-worth, self-care, self-love. She's moving from her home sign, her earthy fixed home sign of Taurus, into the mutable air sign of Gemini. So from the body into the mind. From the sensory into the relational. And so you might find that what was embodied now comes into conversations with others. It's now something that you're talking about, not just feeling in yourself. And so this kind of shows up with how we assign value to ourselves, and our work is shifting. So for those of us in sacred work especially, and sacred work is anything, I'm going to say, that lights you up. Of course, the healing professions are in that. Of course, the creative professions are in that. And really, I think anything that's sacred work is work that lights you up. But for those of us in sacred work, this is an invitation, kind of asking us, can we actually articulate what it is our soul desires to offer, to truly offer? And can we let our like self-worth, our sense of self-worth, be in conversation, in relationship, talk about it, rather than defending it or needing to fix, right? Starting this conversation of talking about self-worth, self-love, like it just is valuable. Venus in Gemini wants to talk about it. She wants to speak. So let her. And normally I only give you a few astrology things, but this week is big. So I'm giving you one more because this is actually huge. Uranus is entering Gemini. And Uranus has not been in Gemini since the 1940s and 50s. That was really like a big time when us as humanity in general, we changed how we communicate, learn, exchange information. And this is called the Great Awakener. You might have heard this term elsewhere. You might not have. But Uranus in Gemini is considered to be the Great Awakener as an archetype. And so the Great Awakener is returning, entering the sign of ideas, language, nervous system of collective thought, you could think of it. And he'll be here for 7 years. So Uranus will be in Gemini for the next 7 years. And that means that the old paradigms of how sacred work gets communicated, valued, and compensated are cracking open. This isn't incidental to what we're exploring today. This is the sky handing us the teaching. And Uranus in Gemini, for me, is really saying the way you've been thinking about abundance, about work, about what it means to be paid for sacred things, that's being revolutionized. Not just for you, for all of us. All right, so why are we doing this topic today? I think we're doing this topic because it's up for me. Saturn is in my second house, which is the house of body. It's also the house of resources. It's body resources, and it's got a lot to do with financial resources. So if you're thinking about abundance, sometimes it's worth looking at your birth chart and figuring out, where's my second house? What planets are in my second house? What goddess astrology is in my second house? And there's an offering. I have a little like DIY course on how to run your goddess astrology. That is in the link of this episode and of every episode. It's worth knowing what's in your second house when we're talking about this. And for me, that's Saturn. Saturn's the big one in my second house. And what that means is there's a feeling of restriction there. I did a whole episode on Saturn, and restriction is like the word that we use for him most often. But Saturn is really about setting up systems and containers. And so what I've found creates abundance for me is that I have to really set the system, set the container. Saturn's home sign is Capricorn. So really tapping into that Capricorn energy, setting the container. And then my second house is in Pisces, which is all flow, dissolution. So for me, once the container is set, my next step is to let go, to trust the flow. And so that's what I've been working on this week. And that's a little bit about what we're talking about today. And I have a lot of ideas and not a lot of answers right now. This transmission, like most of my transmissions, is from the initiation, not from the other side of it. And there's a book I've been reading. There's a few books that I've been reading. I read a lot in this house. We have so many books, but this one I actually got at the library. And there's a term Dharma, which many of you have probably heard. But Dharma finds its roots in the Sanskrit word Dharma from the root dur, meaning to hold, to sustain, to uphold. And it appears across both Hindu and Buddhist traditions. And it breathes a little bit differently in each. In the Hindu tradition, Dharma is your soul's sacred design. the unique shape of your purpose, the particular way your being is meant to move through the world in service to the whole. It's not ambition. It's not achievement. It's letting go of that. It's the thread that the cosmos wove into you before you arrived. It is purpose. And then in Buddhist teaching, Dharma expands outward a little more collectively. It becomes more the truth itself, the teachings, the nature of reality as the Buddha revealed it. And what both teachings hold in common is that original root, that which sustains. So Dharma is what keeps the world in right order, when each being lives in alignment with their deepest nature. And the opposite of Dharma is not failure. It is forgetting. It's the slow erosion of living a life that was never truly yours. And so why are we talking about Dharma? I know, we're in the Celtic arc, and I typically don't go deep into Buddhist philosophy on this podcast, and it's in Hindu philosophy too. And we do touch on Kali, I guess, and we'll probably touch on Parvati and Shiva more at some point. Maybe even Durga and some other Hindu deities are really archetypally interesting to work with. But in this episode, we're talking about Dharma because Dharma is that which sustains. And when we're talking about abundance and we're talking about Taurus energy, what is happening right now is we are being asked to rework our relationship to abundance, to what worth means, what wealth actually is. And Dharma is wealth. Dharma is that which sustains, right? And so we can't have wealth. We can't have money, right? I haven't used the word money yet in this whole episode somehow, but I'm going to name it now. If money is our purpose, if we live our life for money, then we've lost our Dharma. We've lost our purpose. And because we've lost our happiness, right? What abundance is, what we're actually seeking, is enough safety to feel happy. And people with lots of money, they always tell you, they've done tons of happiness studies on this, aren't actually that much happier. Now, that's not to say that there's not a level at which you get happier. There is a level. It is significantly above what we call the poverty line in the US, at which people's happiness does increase because their safety increases. And safety is the container for joy, for happiness. But safety isn't happiness in and of itself. And money isn't happiness in and of itself. Dharma is. Dharma is that which sustains happiness, in my opinion. Because it's our purpose. And so when we're living in soul purpose, when we're living in soul alignment, that's Dharma. And sacred work is being in your Dharma, when you're doing work that lights you up. And this might be work that's meaningful, right? I have a very meaningful career. I enjoy my career. And there are times that I need rest from my career, and that's okay. But what does light me up is something called creative consciousness. So, and I might be making up that term, but it's how I frame it, and I feel like I've heard it before, but it's creative consciousness. And it's this idea of this conscious flow that is happening kind of when we're in this place of creativity. And when we create work from that place. So it's this idea of kind of this push-pull between we're always a little bit dissatisfied and we're always also finding joy in things. Like when you're in your Dharma, it doesn't mean that you're never dissatisfied. Sometimes that feeling of something's missing is just pushing you deeper into your Dharma, right? Because what it's asking of you is to enter a creative state, to get into a creative place of, wow, like this is meaningful. This is sacred work. And what could I be doing that's a little bit different? What can I tweak just a little bit to make it even better? How can I make this work more sustainable? Dharma, that which sustains. And that got very philosophical for a moment. So if you're still with me, thank you. We're going to move into our archetype in just a second. And our archetype this week is the Queen of Pentacles. And I didn't choose her. She chose this episode. I was thinking to myself, I was like, what archetype do I want to do with this episode? Do I even want to do one with it? And I was playing with my tarot, and she just came out, and she wanted to be in this episode. And so I also want to talk a little bit, though, about the suite of pentacles in general. And so the tarot, for those of you who don't know, is divided into two parts, the major arcana and the minor arcana. The major arcana are the things that you'll hear, like the World, the Fool, the High Priestess, the Magician, the Wheel of Fortune, the Lovers. All of those are major arcana. The minor arcana are divided into suites, just like a normal deck of cards, except instead of, hearts and spades and stuff, it's pentacles, wands, swords, and cups. And each of those suites is correlated with an element. So today we're talking about the suite of pentacles. Pentacles is correlated with the earth element. And it's the most misunderstood, maybe. Although I think swords is pretty misunderstood too. But it's a pretty it's either the most or the second to most misunderstood suite in the tarot. Because we really live inside a culture that spiritually bypasses earth. That treats the physical world as less holy than the eternal. But in earth traditions, Celtic traditions and beyond, see, there's the Celtic arc, it's coming in now. The material world is the sacred. The body, the land, the coin, the craft, all of it is holy. And so in Celtic earth-based cosmology, wealth, when we talked about wealth, was relational. It's cyclical and it's land-based. You didn't hoard, you circulated. There's these seasonal rhythms of giving and receiving. Nature works that way. We work that way. We're entering a season of abundance right now. And abundance wasn't a personal achievement. It was more about right relationship with the living earth. And that's a piece of what we've lost. That right now, with Uranus moving into Gemini, with the sun in Taurus, I believe we're being asked to call back, to bring back to center. Coming into right relationship with what abundance actually is, meaning that which sustains, meaning right relationship with the earth. You can see how those are those are the same thing. Meaning right relationship with your self-care. That's that Venus energy happening right now. All of that is what we're being asked to come back to. And so in the suite of pentacles, which is the earth element, pentacles is also sometimes called coins, by the way. It's the earth element and it's the money suite. But there are, 14 cards in each suite. And I'll give you them all a little bit, just a few words for each. But I think by doing so, you'll really get a sense of what this suite is about, of what Pentacles as an archetype is about. And the suite of Pentacles is archetypal in itself in a lot of ways. It's this energy of earth and money and the abundance of earth all being the same thing. And I actually do think that that lives deeply in the collective unconscious through a lot of different cultures and traditions, which is the idea of an archetype. You know, I've done whole episodes on kind of what an archetype is, but just as a reminder, an archetype isn't always like a literal being. An archetype can even be a story. The hero's journey, for instance. Not any specific hero's journey, just the hero's journey as a storyline is an archetype. Okay, so the Ace of Pentacles is the seed. It's the seed. It's the first card in the suite, and it's the seed. So it's potential, right? Then we move to the Two of Pentacles. And the seed moves into balance and adaptation. What is it to juggle balance? A lot of us are feeling this energy right now. How do you juggle taking care of your body's needs and taking care of your home? How do you juggle taking care of others and taking care of yourself, right? Then we move to the Three of Pentacles, which is collaboration, craft. There's a little bit of a mastery theme happening here. And so it's learning that this juggling act, this balancing act, can be fulfilled through collaboration. Because we can't do it all on our own. And that doesn't mean that you can't be self-sufficient. I think there's a part of me that for a while was trying to figure out the balance of that even. How can I be self-sufficient and not hyper-independent, right? How can I be self-sufficient and allow myself to lean on others? But self-sufficiency is more about self-trust, self-authenticity. It doesn't mean that you can't be in collaboration. So then from collaboration in the Three of Pentacles, we move to the Four of Pentacles. And the Four of Pentacles is kind of a backstep in a way. It's the idea of holding. It's security, but it's also like holding in a hoarding way. You're like, oh, I found what I wanted, and now I need to hold on to it because I'm scared. That probably sounds familiar to a lot of us. And from that place of holding, of hoarding, that felt like security at first, we move to the Five of Pentacles, which is actually lack, exclusion, and survival. And so being stuck in your survival instincts, right? And so Five of Pentacles is what happens when we hoard and we hold on for too long, when we let fear and scarcity mindset overtake us. And from there, we move to the Six of Pentacles. The Six of Pentacles brings us back to generosity. And through generosity, it brings us to exchange and reciprocity. Back into right relationship. And a lot of us are right here right now, between Five of Pentacles and Six of Pentacles. We've been stuck in this survival mentality, scarcity mentality, and that's real. And what this archetype of the Pentacles Tarot teaches us, and it's an archetypal journey in a way. We're going through the suite for that reason, because there's the way to explain Pentacles as an archetype is to go through the archetypal journey of the suite. But what this journey is teaching us thus far is that the key to moving past this scarcity mindset is to move back into reciprocity, back into right relationship with ourselves, with each other, with the earth. And from there, we move to the Seven of Pentacles, which is patience, tending patience. I like to think of this as tending the earth, tending what you're building, tending the root system. And then 8 of Pentacles is dedication, practice, refinement. And so you're building the tree trunk from the root system, right? To 9 of Pentacles. 9 of Pentacles is sovereignty. Now your tree has some branches, a couple leaves. It can survive on its own. It's earned abundance. And it doesn't survive entirely on its own because its root system is connected and in reciprocal right relationship with all the other trees in the mycelium networks. And the other trees let you know, hey, there's a water shortage, you should store up. Okay. Or, hey, I have a little extra water over here. Send your roots this direction and we can share. Trees actually do that. It's super cool. You can look it up. But from there, from 9 of Pentacles, we move to 10 of Pentacles. And 10 of Pentacles is legacy. It's wholeness. It's the sense of inheritance. And so it's exactly that. It's, okay, I'll send my roots your direction. And now I'm getting water from over there. I'm inheriting the leftover water. And now it's, okay, wholeness. I am whole unto myself. My branches are tall enough. I can reach toward the sun. I can send out blossoms and start to pollinate the earth, right? Maybe that's pollinating the earth with your ideas. Maybe it's literal children for you. But I also like to think of this as like pollinating the earth with new belief systems, pollinating the earth with new ideas. And from 10 of Pentacles, we move to Page of Pentacles, which is curiosity, study. It's kind of this sense of new beginnings, but it's new beginnings that are rooted in the old. So it's like new beginnings based on that legacy that you just built. It's kind of this idea of creating. We move into this energy of curiosity, of curious creation. And from there, we move into the Knight of Pentacles, which is steadiness, diligence, reliability. And then from there, we move to the Queen of Pentacles, who I'll talk more about. And she's nurturance, she's earthly, and she's sustaining. And from her, we move to King of Pentacles, which is mastery, stewardship, right? So still in this theme of reciprocity, of giving back, and provision. And so the full arc of this suite is a lifetime of embodied, meaningful building. From the Ace, the seed of what's possible, through the 10, which is that legacy, home, abundance passed forward through lineages. It's not a get-rich story. It's a get-rooted story. Okay, that was cliche, but it was good. So the shadow of the Pentacles suite, I want to mention, right? This is not an all love and light podcast, but the shadow of the Pentacles suite is the workaholic and the hoarder. It is someone who hoards, who works themselves to the bone because they don't trust the river to keep flowing. It's the one who works until there's nothing left because resting is too scary. Okay. And so coming back to Dharma for a second. Dharma is that which sustains. The Queen of Pentacles, one of her words was sustaining, right? Which is why I loved that we pulled her. And the Queen of Pentacles, she's the archetype of sacred sustenance. She's the one that's learned that abundance is not hoarded but tended. It's not grasped but grown. And she sits in her garden. She is both child of the earth and queen and sovereign. And everything she touches flourishes. Not because she forces it. She doesn't over-fertilize her crops. But because she's in right relationship with the rhythms of the living world. From a Dharma lens, she is the embodiment of what happens when your soul's gift and your material reality are no longer in opposition. When the way you make your living is your living, fully expressed. She does not separate her nurturance of others from her nurturance of herself. And she knows that the most radical act of the sacred worker is to be so rooted, so genuinely sovereign in her body, in the earth, that abundance flows to and through her rather than being wrung from her. She's not the queen of hustle. She is the queen of enough. And enough, tended with devotion, becomes legacy, according to the Pentacles suite. But according to Dharma, right? So each soul reincarnates or incarnates, depends on the tradition. But each soul incarnates with a unique gift, essentially. A purpose that is yours alone to express. And so Dharma is the intersection of that gift, your deepest nature, and how you offer it in service to others. It's not just what you do, but how your being moves through the world. So when you are in Dharma, work doesn't deplete you. It generates energy. If you're feeling depleted, there's probably a call for a tiny tweak that can get you further into your Dharma, right? The universe supports what's in alignment with the soul's true purpose. And there's a key distinction here. Dharma is not karma. They sound similar, but they're not the same thing. Karma is the accumulated action-consequence cycle. Dharma is the soul's original blueprint underneath all of that. You're not working off a debt. You are expressing a design. And there's this wound that I want to talk about a little bit about the sacred worker. About what it means to do sacred work. Whether that's healing work, creative work, whether that is work that is not valued by our society, but it lights you up. And here's the thing, just because you're burnt out doesn't mean you're not in your Dharma. I want to clarify this because I kind of just said the opposite. That sacred work, Dharma work doesn't deplete you. It generates energy. It does. That doesn't mean that it generates enough energy to counter systems that are broken. And so Dharma generates energy. That means say you're a teacher and you go to work and you love teaching the kids, but what you hate is that some of them don't have lunches, that many of them don't have, adequate healthcare or mental health care. And that job is now falling on you when what you really wanted was to teach them Shakespeare. If you're taking on burdens that aren't your Dharma, of course they're going to burn you out, even if the thing that is your Dharma you still love. So I guess, the question to ask yourself is, if I wasn't fighting against all the systems, if the systems were working with me instead of against me, would this work light me up? Would this work give me energy? If your answer is yes, you're in your Dharma. And I'm just clarifying that because our world is really different right now than it's meant to be. But that's the whole point. That's the whole point of this transformative cycle that we're going through right now. I really believe that is that we are transforming the world, hopefully, more into what we actually want to see, so that more of us are able to truly live in our Dharma and only in our Dharma. And here's another really honest paradox. You cannot build from rest if you can't afford rest. This is not a personal failure. It's structural. And so, what do we do with all of this information? We choose to rest anyways, because scarcity literally narrows the window of tolerance. And so the window of tolerance is something I'm going to talk about this episode. I'm going to talk about it next week in a few different ways. I've talked about it before. But the window of tolerance, what the nervous system can perceive, receive, and integrate, is how I'm talking about it right now. And when we're in survival, abundance cannot land even when it's present. The body needs safety to receive. That's the feminine. Receiving is the feminine. That's Venus. And this is not metaphor. This is not just goddess archetypes. This is neurobiology. Your body needs safety to receive. So when you can't afford rest, you rest anyways. Sometimes that means checking out, right? We live in a crisis of dissociation right now, because dissociation is sometimes the closest thing you can afford to get to rest. What if you let that be okay for a minute? And what if you gave yourself permission to schedule rest? Permission to use any scrap of PTO you have and rest, even for an hour. What if it was permission to not work through your lunch break? Sometimes it's as simple as that. The wheel of the year has fallow seasons for a reason. It has rest seasons for a reason. The land knows you don't harvest in winter. And yet we're asked to harvest from ourselves in winter. You do not plant seeds without rest. The Celtic ancestors built rest into the sacred calendar. Samhain to Imbolc was the long dark, the turning inward, the necessary dormancy. We've totally forgotten this, and we've called our forgetting productivity. We live in a capitalist system, and rest is not encouraged. To tend to yourself is to say, my worth is not my output. And that's an act of radical resistance. Resting is political. Resting is spiritual. And next week, the fire of Beltane is arriving. That's supposed to be pleasure, desire, the body's sacred yes. And we're going to talk about this, but Beltane's fire requires that you have something in the tank to light on fire. You need to have rest to plant, rest to build from. And so this week is still a little bit about tending the ember, tending the seeds, not forcing the flame yet. So what do you need to lay down before you can step into the fire? In our closing practice today, we're going back to this idea of pentacles, this idea of coins. But I want to give you a feeling of what it is to be in flow. To be in reciprocity, to be in both giving and receiving. And so we'll start how we always start, which is to take a few breaths. Settle into your body. to go outside if you'd like to and start to feel the weight of yourself on the earth. Another option for this particular practice, which is really cool, is to actually literally stand in a river or a creek if you have one nearby. You can always pause this, go to the creek, and start it again. But if you're not going to a river, start to bring to mind a river. Not still water, a moving current. This is abundance. Abundance isn't a reservoir you must protect and guard and ration. Abundance is a living river, always moving, always arriving. Notice where in your body you're gripping around receiving. Perhaps it's the chest, the belly, the hands. Breathe into those places. Where are you gripping? Where are you resisting receiving? Really feel into that. Feel the river moving through you rather than being dammed. The river is moving to you and through you. It's not flowing out of your center. It's not flowing into your center and getting stuck there. It is flowing into your center and through it. You are not separate from this current. You never were. The earth has always been abundant. The question is only whether you can open enough to receive what is already flowing. And take a moment to just place your hands on your body, wherever feels right. And feel the warmth of your own hands. Feel their warmth giving to you. Feel you giving to yourself. These hands that offer to others, let them offer to you. Can you open to receiving your own flow? That's Venus's ask. Let the river move. Subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Trust the spiral. This podcast offers spiritual and psychological education and priestess wisdom. This is not therapy, counseling, or mental health treatment. If you need mental health support, please contact a licensed provider, and in a mental health emergency in the U.S., call 988.